Welcome to our Wednesday night small group and our study of the parables of Jesus. This is session number 9 in the session, and this will be our last session on the parables. So what have we looked at so far? Good teachers always review what we've done before. So here's what we've done before. In session 1, we looked at the parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector. And the major point of that parable was the idea of being humble before God, realizing it's not by our actions, our trying, that we're able to justify ourselves, before God, but it's through His grace, and that we come to Him asking for that grace and mercy. In session 2, we looked at the parable of the prodigal son. The major point of this parable was God's wanting all of His children to come home, and He's waiting and ready to forgive all who would repent and return to Him. In session 3, we looked at the parable of the sower and considered what kind of soil we might be. Are we the type of soil that listens to what God has said and then grows from it? Or do we listen and just let it kind of go by the side? Session 4 was the parable of the Good Samaritan. We talked about who our neighbor really is and what it means to love him or her. Session 5 was the parable of the rich fool. And the major point of this parable was to talk about preparations for the future. Not necessarily the future here on earth, but eternal future in heaven. Session 7 was the parables of the builder and the king. And that one, the main point was to count the cost of discipleship. Not always is being a disciple of Christ an easy road, depending on where you happen to live and the culture that you are in. It can be a very dangerous thing to be a disciple. So before becoming a disciple, the point of the parable was to count the cost. And then last week, we talked about the parable of the tenants and the vineyard. And this was one of the most direct parables that Jesus taught. It was about the leadership or the lack of leadership when it came to the religious leaders of His day and previous. But it was also about stewardship. All of these parables kind of merge together when you think about the topics. So last week was stewardship, and then this week we're going to talk about stewardship again, but stewardship in the idea of talents. What do you do with your talents? So we're in Matthew chapter 25, and we're beginning at verse 14. Matthew 25, beginning at verse 14. And I'll set up the situation for you here in just a minute. But when we think about the parable of the talents, and particularly as it's given in the book of Matthew, talents mean money. It's a look at stewardship of the money that we have. But in modern society, talents really mean a lot more. When I think of the word talent, I don't think of money, because we don't have talents as money anymore. I think of talents as a skill or an ability to do something. So thinking of it along that line, here's one. I got a couple for you tonight. Here's one of the questions for tonight for the group.
You only get one.
I only get one? Okay.
Make it a good.
Yeah. Well, you're going to get at least 2. First question. When you were in school, secondary school, I'm thinking primarily high school. When you were in school, what did you consider to be your most significant talent? I'm thinking of talent as a skill or an ability to do something. What did you think of as your most significant talent, and how did you use it?
Get the homework done.
It's what?
Get the homework done.
Get the homework done. I was going to say mine was academic. It was definitely not sports. Anybody else?
Yeah. I just love math, algebra, trigonometry, all of those
Okay,
things.
so your talent was in math.
I did.
Okay,
Mine was in nursing.
in nursing,
High school, yeah.
I guess science.
science,
History.
yeah.
I liked American history.
I was the nerd. I liked everything that dealt with academics.
I didn't.
You didn't?
My talent was singing,
Singing.
Yeah.
All right.
gospel songs,
Mhm.
and hymns, and the church and choir.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Great.
So,
praise the Lord.
We'll have to talk to Alan.
point him towards you.
I already did.
Okay, so we have other talents besides money, but money is still important. So here's your second question. Part A. It has B, part 2. When you were a kid, a child, were you a saver or a spender? When you got your allowance, did you go out and spend it immediately? Or did you save it for something specific? Or a little of both?
I'd say
Were you a saver or a spender?
saver.
Saver?
Mostly both.
Mostly both.
Because you never knew when you were going to see any more money, so you saved it.
You saved it.
For different times.
I was somewhat of a saver because I usually had something I wanted.
Yeah.
And, you know, I got an allowance, and as a teenager, I mowed yards and had a paper route and other things to make a little bit of money. But it was never enough to buy anything unless you saved it up for a little bit.
I'll say we babies.
So now the question is, here's the B part. Has your perspective on saving or spending changed as you got older?
Well, I've got more bills now.
I still save.
Still save?
Still save.
I still save, but I also, particularly when it comes to the grandchildren, spend money more than I probably should.
Well, that doesn't fit in the picture.
That doesn't fit in the picture. Okay. You know, we'll go off somewhere for vacation and we start looking around for souvenirs, and we're not looking for souvenirs for us. We're looking at something to bring back to the grandkids.
He can't go to Mardell's. Isn't that?
Yeah, Mardell's, yeah.
He can't go there.
Then it is for us.
I thought you were buying it for grandkids. too.
No.
Oh, okay.
Nope, nope. Mardell's is us. That's the
selfish part.
That's the selfish part. That's the saving part. But
It's Christian books.
when it comes to, we save, yes, but we also spend mostly on stuff for the grandkids or the kids, because we don't need anything else to dust.
No,
I don't save miserly, but I try to.
Put a little bit away.
I
Yeah.
try to put back as much as I can.
We need to have an emergency fund.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if something comes up that I really need to do or want to do, I do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
We do. We have an emergency fund,
Uh-huh.
and we put a little bit in it, but otherwise, you know, the money is there. We jokingly tell the 3 boys that we're going to spend everything and then die. They got nothing left. And they laugh and say, no, you're not, but whatever.
I tell my kids and my daughter and my grandkids, if you want to spend my money, you better come when I call. Because there's not going to be any left when I'm dead.
Yeah.
We're going to have them spend it all.
So, stewardship or use of your money or your skills or abilities, they all figure into talents. Now, in Jesus' day, there was not a Wall Street. There were not investment bankers. But there were still opportunities to invest money because there were rules in the Old Testament regarding usurage, which was basically lending money to people and making a profit off of it. So Jesus' parable about the talents and the use of the talents that he gave the servants would have been something that would have been very understandable to the people around him, because it was a everyday practical arrangement that they would have understood. Now, there are 2 different places in the 4 Gospels where this parable is given. We're looking at it in Matthew chapter 25. It's also found in Luke chapter 19. But it's a slightly different take on the parable. In Matthew's version of the parable of the talents, it's about stewardship. It's about What do you do with your money and with your skills and abilities? If you read the same story in general in Luke's Gospel, chapter 19, it's more about being prepared for the coming of the Savior, being prepared for Jesus' second coming.
Is it in Luke the one that says the parable of the
10 denarius. Yeah.
minus?
Yeah. It's a similar story, but it's a different amount of money and it's a different point in the story. That point is more to the idea of, are you ready? Are you alert for Jesus to come back? And I think, I think the reason for that, if you look in Matthew 25, just before the parable of the talents is the parable of the 10 virgins.
I read that.
And that one is about being prepared for the second coming. So I think Matthew had two of them kind of back to back with different points, whereas Luke only shares the one. The parable of the 10 virgins is not in the Luke account. So, a little bit different point of view. So what's going on at this point? Well, I said this was kind of a continuation of last week's. If you remember last week on Sunday, we were in Matthew, let's see, where am I? Matthew chapter 22, verse 34. We were talking about the greatest commandment. And this happened on Tuesday afternoon. And when you look at chapters 23 and 24, which we're going to look at next Sunday, Jesus and the disciples are now leaving the temple, going back to Bethany. And the disciples are looking at the temple and commenting on how wonderful it looks. And then Jesus talks about the temple being destroyed and being rebuilt in 3 days, referring to his body and his crucifixion, not the physical building of the temple. And then he goes on to talk about being ready for his second coming. That's Sunday's lesson. So if you want to hear that, you got to be here Sunday for New Horizons small group. But in continuing that story, he continues on. This is still Tuesday evening. He's walking back to Bethany with his disciples, and he's still on the point, beginning of chapter 25, of being ready for the second coming. And then, beginning at verse 14, he starts talking about the need to be a good steward in the meantime. Not just to kind of sit in a pew and do nothing, but to be steward of your talents and use them for the growth of the kingdom. So let's look at the parable of the talents out of Matthew.
And talents is money.
Here is referring to money. And I'll talk a little bit about what that amounts to in a minute.
So let's see it.
But here, he's talking about money. But remember, it can also be your abilities, your skills, other things as well. But here, it's specifically about money. So Matthew 25, beginning at verse 14 and going to 18. Ron, would you read those?
Sure. Okay, again, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. Excuse me. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, and another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 bags more. How far?
Through 18.
18. So also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. But the man who had received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money.
Okay.
Kind of like putting it in savings and leaving it alone.
Yeah, not even that.
Not even with interest.
Not even that.
No interest.
Okay, verse 14 out of the Holman. For it is just like a man going on a journey. He called his own slaves or servants, depending on your translation, and turned over his possessions to them. Now, remember I have said before as we're doing these parables that sometimes you can get a one-to-one comparison and other times not so much. In this particular case, it's pretty evident to me and to the writer of our study that when they're talking about the man going on a journey, they're talking about Jesus. And the journey he's talking about is the fact that he's going back to heaven and he's coming back someday, but we don't know when. So it's a journey, but we don't have any idea how long that journey is going to be. And while he's gone, the parable is the owner of the land, the owner of the estate here, is turning over to his servants, slaves, his possessions, to make use of them to make money for it. That would be the intent. The idea here is that Jesus is going on a journey and he will return someday, and he's turning over to his believers his kingdom to bring an increase to his kingdom. For the people that heard it, they would have been able to relate to that very well, because a wealthy man having a steward, and that would have been who the person was that would have been given the possessions, it would not have been unusual for a steward to have been given control over an estate, to care for it, to increase it, to do good things for it, for the master of the house. Verse 15, to one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, each according to his own ability. Then he went on a journey. So, what's a talent? We've heard throughout the Gospels talents being mentioned. I think probably there are 2 monetary words that I read in the scriptures a lot. One is denarius. Everybody remember what a denarius was worth?
A day's labor.
Yeah.
A denarius was worth 1 day's laborer's pay.
Right.
So not a skilled workman. If you remember when we did the story of the payments to the workers who went into the vineyard,
Right.
they were given a denarius. They were not skilled workers. They were manual laborers, but they were given a denarius. That was 1 day's
Okay.
wage. So what does a talent equal?
6,000.
Well, a talent initially started as a unit of weight. Ron, yours read, he gave him a bag of gold. So that would have been something they would weigh to see how much it was worth. So they would give them a bag of gold or a talent, and one commentary said that a talent would have been worth a laborer's pay
For 20.
for 20 years.
That's what mine says, yeah. Gee.
So think of that. 1 denarius a day for a year is 365 times 20 years.
Well, they say 6,000.
Okay, it says 6,000.
That's what mine says, 6,000.
I didn't do the math.
1 talent is worth
1 talent
6,000.
is worth all of that.
Yeah.
So 365 denarius a year times 20 gives you how many denarii a talent would have been worth. In other words, it was a heap of money.
Yeah.
So this landowner,
And if you get 5 to them.
Yeah, I was just thinking, that's wow. It's like,
but just think, he had to be really rich too,
Yeah.
because he gave 5 to one, 2 to the other, and 1 to another. So he had to be really rich. But notice, he gave a different amount to each servant. It's a point that Luke's one doesn't make. When you read the story in Luke, all of them got 10 minus.
Oh, really?
It was a different point for the story. But when you read it in Luke, each of the workers get 10 minus. So here, he's giving it out. And the point I think that Matthew is making here, that I take from it at least, is that each one of them, notice verse 15, to each according to his own ability. Not everybody got the same amount, because not everybody could handle the same amount. Some were better with money than others. Some had more talents than others. But again, there's an expectation of this landowner that the person getting 5 talents was going to do something with it and get an increase. And the one who had 2 would make an increase. And the one who got 1 would make an increase. All according to what they got and what their ability was in managing that money. Verse 16 says, immediately the man who had received 5 talents went, put them to work, and earned 5 more. In the same way, the man with 2 earned 2 more. Now, the Greek word that is translated here as immediately, and Ron, I think yours said at once. He went at once.
Yeah, mine says immediately.
Be verse.
When at once, yes.
When at once.
He's running to work.
The word here means immediately. It means prompt. The guy didn't just sit on the money for the next 2 years and wait on the master to come back. He immediately went and did something with it. He immediately put it to work. And the 2 servants that got the 5 and the 2 immediately went and did something with it. They were immediately obedient to the expectation that the master had, that the servant would put the money to work, would do something with his talents. I have a page out of line here.
That's a problem.
Yeah, it did not read right, so I did something wrong. All right. Where am I? Sorry about that.
No problem.
There we go. Get the verses in the right order. Now, for those of you that have investment accounts, I am sure that you have seen on your statements the little disclaimer at the bottom that says, investing has the risk of loss. You seen that one? It would have been the same back then. These 2 servants that took the 5 and the 2 to invest to make money ran the risk of losing something. But they were obedient to the expectation of their master that they would be prudent in what they did. The guy who had the 5 talents had proven himself to be able to handle the 5 talents. He would have put them to work in a way that would have been prudent. The same with the guy who got 2. But the man who had received 1 went off and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. He played it safe. I didn't even take it and give it to the banker to get interest. And today, at least, interest on a savings account is not much.
Like a 0.5%.
But they didn't even do that.
Well, he probably laughed at him if he brought in something like that.
No, who knows?
Go home.
Well, a talent was, what,
6,000?
6,000 something denarii. It would have been a amount of money that he would have gotten at least a little bit of interest back. But he didn't even do that. He dug a hole and put it in the ground. Or
But there was a reason.
he may have hid it under his mattress.
Well, he may have known
He did
that
not
bank
know.
had a lot of problems. and most
He
people
could have known that.
lost
So-
their money.
What happens then when the master comes back? Verses 19 to 23. Sherry?
After a long time, the Lord of those servants cometh and reckoneth with them. And so he that had received 5 talents came and brought other 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained beside them 5 talents more. And his Lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. He also, that had received 2 talents, came and said, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 2 talents. Behold, I have gained 2 other talents beside them. His Lord said unto him, Well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord.
Okay, verse 19 in the Holman says, after a long time. So if we take it for granted when we started that the owner here, the master, is Jesus, and he's going away. After a long time, it's been 2,000 plus years, and we still have no idea when he's coming back. It may be 2,000 more years for all we know. After a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with them. He's kind of saying to the disciples, the kingdom is not going to be established in your time frame. Remember, the people were expecting him to ride into Jerusalem and establish the Davidic kingdom again. Even after his resurrection, the disciples asked, are you going to establish the kingdom now? And Jesus' answer here and later is, no. It's going to come later. There's going to be a time gap. And you don't know how long it is, and I don't know how long it is. Only the Father knows. But there's going to come a day when we're going to settle accounts. Then the man who had received 5 talents approached, presented 5 more talents, and said, Master, you gave me 5 talents. Look, I've earned 5 more talents. His master said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Share your master's joy. Now, storytelling in this time usually went in kind of groups of 3. And many of Jesus' parables went in groups of 3. You establish a pattern, and then you have the twist. Remember we said when we started that the parables, most of them have a twist that nobody sees coming? Well, here's the pattern. The one who had 5 talents came and said, you gave me 5, I've earned 5 more. Look down at 22. Then the man with 2 talents approached. He said, Master, you gave me 2 talents. Look, I've earned 2 more talents. Same wordage as the one who had 5. So there's a pattern established. The servants, the slaves, were diligent and prudent in their use of the talent, the money given them by the master, and they had returned a profit to him. He returned an increase to him. And the master replied in both cases, well done, good and faithful slave. You were faithful over a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Share your master's joy. They had come back with 100% increase in what they'd been given. And they had done what the master had wanted them to do. And for that, they were applauded. And you notice they were given more? They were given more to do because they were successful over what they had been given. But the point he's making here for these 2 is that there's going to come a day when there is going to be an accounting for those who are believers. That's what you have done with your talents, regardless of what those talents involve. Let's look at the twist in the story. The guy who only had 1 talent. Sandy, 24:25.
I like this one. Then the man who had received 1 talent also approached and said, Master, I know you. You're a difficult man, reaping where you haven't sown and gathering where you haven't scattered seed. So I was afraid and went off and hid your talent in the ground. Look, you have what is yours.
Okay, go on through 30.
Okay. But his master replied to him, you evil, lazy slave. If you knew that I reap where I haven't sown and gather where I haven't scattered, then you should have deposited my money with the bankers. And when I returned, I would have received my money back with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have more than enough. But from the one who does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him.
and throw this good-for-nothing slave into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Okay.
Serious.
Horrible punishment.
Verse 24, 25.
Telling it right.
Then the man who had received 1 talent also approached and said, Master, I know you. You're a difficult man, reaping where you haven't sown and gathering where you haven't scattered seed. So I was afraid and went off and hid your talent in the ground. Look, you have what is yours. Here's a total reversal of the other 2 servants. The other 2 servants prudently used their talents to get an increase.
But can't you understand what the other guy was doing? I mean, all these people aren't great on money.
Nope.
Taking care of money.
Nope. And
Someone hadn't had any money at all.
it may have been that, but he was given 1 talent, which his master thought he could handle prudently, and instead of obeying and trying to handle it prudently, he hides it.
Well, he would probably lost it.
He may have, but he didn't even try. He didn't even try, and I think that's the point here. He didn't even try to do anything
Well,
with
did
it.
anybody try to help him?
We have no idea.
Don't know.
See,
But the-
there's a lot of problems here.
Maybe. But when you look at this, we're looking at a person here who, for me talking here, I see the 3rd servant as a guy who's looking at, if you will, the God of the Old Testament, who they viewed as a God of wrath
Right.
and punishment, because that had been the cycle in Jewish history for the Old Testament. I see the 2 guys who did something with their monies, seeing God more as we see him in the New Testament, more as the loving God. Now, I may be totally wrong, but that's just kind of my point of view when I look at it. Bev?
I'm trying to point out that it's a lack of faith.
It's a lack of faith. It's
That you're not using the talent that God's given you to use because you don't believe that God's gonna.
they can use it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So the master replied to him, You evil, lazy slave, if you knew that I reap where I haven't sown and gathered where I haven't scattered, then you should have deposited my money with the bankers. And when I returned it, I would have received my money back with interest. So even if he wasn't good at handling money, he could have put it in a savings account.
Not in a hole.
Well, I never
Not in a hole.
I never could believe that he told him, I knew you and you're a cheat, you're dishonest.
You're basically, that's why I say I think of him as looking at the master as the God of the Old Testament. You're a God of wrath. You're a God of judgment. If I goof up, you're going to come down on me hard. Whereas I think the other 2 guys saw it more as a God of love.
Right.
But notice he calls him an evil, lazy slave. Different than good and faithful. That's about the opposite of what you can get here. But I think the implication here is that it wasn't because of lack of ability or opportunity. It was a lack of a willingness to obey and try.
Lazy.
Well, I wonder what had
He
happened
was
if
lazy,
he tried.
according to the Bible.
Is what?
According to the Bible, he was lazy.
Lazy, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Doesn't
just
even
throw
try.
it all.
Well, what if he'd tried and lost every bit of it?
Then he could have put it in a savings account and it would not lost.
But at least he tried.
So take the talent
Well,
from
he's already
him
lost it.
and give it to the one who has 10 talents. For everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have more than enough. But the one who does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. And throw this good-for-nothing slave into outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
That's
Take the talent from him.
Every punishment.
So isn't that telling us though that we're supposed to use the talent that we've got?
I think what it's telling us
Even if we're not
is
real
that
successful,
all of us
we're
have
supposed to try.
talents.
Yeah, we're supposed to try.
We have a certain amount of money, we have a certain amount of abilities in different areas.
All those tests.
We should have abilities to do something. And I think it's also telling us that if we don't use that talent,
It just goes to waste.
it goes to waste. We lose it. Now, here's my viewpoint on losing the talent. If you're a musician, take my son for instance. My oldest son is a trombone player in high school. He still plays the trombone once in a while, not often. But he has a much more difficult time now playing the trombone because not having played it continually, he doesn't have the what do they call arbitrary, the lip motion
Right.
to make it work. So if you don't use it, you lose it.
Use it or lose it.
Use it or lose it.
That's it.
So that's what I think he's saying here. If you don't use it, you lose the talent. If you don't try, then you're not going to keep the talent. It's going to go away. The responsibility here of the first two servants was to go out and try. Could they have lost some of the money? Yes,
Probably.
but they tried. The third
They
guy
made some.
didn't try.
They made.
He just put it under the pillow, put it in the ground. He just did away with it. He was not, and this is, I think, the point of the parable altogether, he was not a good steward, which goes back to last week's parable of the tenants in the farm. They were not good stewards. They did not take care of the land and provide the increase to the Lord of the land. Instead, they tried to keep it for themselves. I think this parable tells us that we all have talents and we all need to use them or lose them, but we need to try. And then we depend on God to give us the ability to use that talent for His increase.
Got any teenagers that go sing in the praise band?
Mhm.
That's your talent.
She's
Carol?
recruiting you.
That means you're supposed to be singing.
Okay. Any other comments other than trying to recruit Harold over here? Any other comments or anything else that you see in the?
This one I understood.
Well, good.
I was pretty proud. Usually I go, huh?
Yeah. And again, if you go and read the one in Luke, it's very similar, except they're all given the same amount, and two do good and the other ones don't. But the point is it's a different point. This one, the point is, what are you doing with your talents? And with that, we have finished our study of the parables. You get next week off unless you want to go to one of the other groups. And I'm going to go watch our granddaughter play her bass in the jazz band.
We have Wednesdays off until fall. Right?
And then we have Wednesdays off until fall. And I'm looking at several different books for the fall. I'll let you know about midsummer after I have a chance to look at some of the studies, which one we're going to do. But I got several books we're looking at.
Where does she play her instrument?
She plays at Blue Springs. She's in the middle school down there, so this is middle school jazz band.
And who all can hear
Bring
them?
him here.
Can we hear them from a distance?
Uh,
Up here someplace?
You won't hear me up here. You have to go there to hear. Although their band has played down in the Gym Theater at 18th and Vine, and 2 or 3 other venues around town.
Great, yeah.
So they are pretty good, and she is the bassist.
Yeah.
I think that's the right
She's
word.
a bass player.
She's the bass player.
Yeah.
The basis.
That might be a word, but it's unusual.
It's unusual. Okay, let's close with prayer, and then we'll be done for the semester.
Okay.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this lesson, and we thank you for this point about stewardship. We all have talents. We all have abilities that can be used for you. We just ask that you identify them to us. May we use them to your glory, and may we not be bashful to stand before others and use the talent for you. For we ask it in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.